The slightly cold and crisp gust of wind made Miriam smile as she looked up at the clear blue sky as the sun hid behind the clouds. The weather was a little chilly, but her dress was thick enough to keep the draft away. She twirled around the long stem flowers and hummed to herself. She hadn't known how much she had missed it, not until now, when she was experiencing it again. There were no sounds of traffic. People weren't walking by as if their worlds were on fire, and the air smelled clean instead of laden with the suffocating smell of gasoline. I don't know why I ever left, Miriam thought as she feasted her eyes on her surroundings, when suddenly a loud beeping noise filled her head. Frantically, she looked around for the source of the horrid noise, suddenly missing the silence as the beauty of nature started to fade from her mind. The grass under her bare feet transformed into gravel, and the flowers turned to lampposts and signals. Suddenly, she was standing in the middle of the street, the beeping sound intensifying as the cars rushed by her in a hurry. As one came right towards her, she woke up, gasping. The first thing Miriam noticed as she opened her eyes was the moldy ceiling of her shoebox-sized apartment, if one could even call it that. Slowly and gradually, everything started to come back to her as she slapped her hand over the alarm clock she had purchased for less than $2 at a thrift store. At that time, she had been proud of her smart buy, but now and every morning when the ringing of the clock almost made her deaf, she regretted it with everything in her exhausted body. Thinking of the clock, she turned to look at it and realized she was more than a half hour late for work again. "Oh, no, Phil is going to kill me today," she exclaimed. The thought enough to get her to jump out of bed and rush toward the small bathroom at the other side of her room. Her room was so small that it wasn't even possible for her to outstretch her arms unless they touched a wall. This morning, Miriam didn't stop to even think about it like she usually did. The small apartment was the only lodging she had had in the city, since she had no Freunde, and therefore no one else with who she could share the rent with to enable her to move to a better place. Her landlord was also a little more accommodating than most other landlords. She had met him when she first started to look for a place to live. Roger was what you could call a human teddy bear. Even his features resembled one, but was a kind man. Probably the only kind man Miriam had met in the city.